welcome to Belle's Book Reviews again, and today we are going to be reviewing Sun by Lois Lowry. In the Giver Quartet, I made a huge mistake. I accidentally read the fourth book. Apparently, Sun's actually the fourth book. So I accidentally read the fourth book before I read the second and third book. And I think that this one really, it didn't have that much of an impact on this series for me, because it did tell me what ended up with all the characters, what happened to all the characters in the end. But I don't think that this is going to ruin anything for me when I read Gathering Blue, because I don't think too much is revealed about Kira, just the fact that she has kids and she marries Jonas. Anyways, I would recommend this book for ages 8 to 12. This book has no inappropriate content, but at the same time, I just don't think that kids under 8 would actually enjoy this book, because it is slightly long and there are 3 parts to it. So I think I kind of feel like to younger kids it kind of confuses them. And the author's purpose of writing this book, I believe, is to influence children, because in this book, Lois Lowry, she writes about a child whose community's future lies in his hands. I also think that she meant for audiences to acknowledge a mother's love for her child, the fact that Claire gave up her life and the people she loved, all for Gabe, shows that a mother, and don't get me wrong, also a father, I'm sure, would go extreme distances for their child. There were a few things I liked about this book. One thing that I really liked was how there were actually 3 parts of the book that were actually essential to each other in order to understand the third and last part. Because sometimes I feel like there are 2 parts in a book, but you can read any part first and it'll still make sense, I guess. I mean, it might be a bit confusing if you read the second part before the first part, but I feel like this book is actually one of the few books I've read in which the parts actually contribute to the story. I also liked how Claire had such undying love for Gabe. I'm sure that every parent does, but I felt like Claire and Gabe's relationship, when Claire, she's starting to kind of when she's on her deathbed at the end nearing the end of the book, I just felt like she and Gabe, all the time they could have had together, I felt like all that time was stolen from them, because they could have had years to live together. But first off, Gabe was taken from her when he was born. Second, she went years without him, and then now that she's finally come to the village that he lives in, now Trademaster had already taken away her youth, and now she can't do anything with him. So I feel like, honestly, half of their lives were taken away from them. I also loved how everyone in the village accepted and took care of Claire in part 2, because honestly, I did expect them to be much more hostile, because in The Giver, there's something called sameness. Everyone needs to be the same. There are rules. Your job is assigned to you. Your family is assigned to you. Everything's assigned to you. So honestly, I felt like it was kind of like a hostile environment, because even your parents in The Giver, even your parents weren't your real birth parents. So I was just really expecting them to be really hostile towards Claire, maybe a bit suspicious of her, wondering why she came up, wondering how she was still alive, stuff like that. But still, I was just surprised, honestly, that they accepted Claire so quickly, and how everybody just immediately loved Claire, and what a close-knit community it was. And another thing I liked was the fact that Jonas and Kira treat Gabe like a son, because I do feel kind of like it's Jonas's sort of responsibility to kind of like take in Gabe, because Jonas was the one who actually brought Gabe to this community in the first place. So I kind of feel like he's sort of responsible for Gabe. So honestly, since Jonas, he doesn't know his birth parents yet, or his birth mother. So I really liked how he actually kind of got the feeling that he had parents and siblings, how he was kind of accepted as a bit like a part of their family. Anyway, some things I didn't like were that first off, Jonas and Kira didn't adopt Gabe. I loved how they actually treated him like a son, but they couldn't. I don't know if this was allowed in their community, but I wish they had just adopted him, because honestly, Jonas brought him there. Now Gabe is living in a lodge with random boys. So honestly, I do think that it would have been a lot better if Jonas could have just acted like a father figure to Gabe. Another character that I didn't like in this book was tall Andras. I don't know how you pronounce his name. I think it's Andras. But I didn't like tall Andras overall. His and Claire's relationship, first off, is very awkward. And later in the book, he marries someone else. So honestly, like this entire time, half the book, the entire time that she was staying at the village, almost the entire time, the author keeps on writing about how tall Andras, he's kind of just like staring at Claire from a distance. He's just working hard so that he can get Claire as a bride. He's asking to marry Claire, etc. So first off, I think that's really awkward. But second, at the end, he just marries a random person and everyone's okay with it. Everyone's just like, okay, it happened, who cares? But the thing is, like, tall Andras, he's like laying down everything for her, and then suddenly he picks everything up and goes and marries someone else. And like, it's not even like with warning or anything. It's not, because personally, I did expect tall Andras and Claire, because like, we all knew that Claire was going to leave the village. But honestly, tall Andras, I really do feel like, I really did actually think that they were at least going to like, at least become like good friends by the time she left. But honestly, they just stayed almost strangers the entire time. And like, yes, they did have like 1 or 2 conversations, but that's it. There is nothing other than those 1 or 2 conversations. And at the end, it's just like, when I read about him marrying that other person, like, first off, tall Andras was unfazed. Second, Claire, she's just like, oh, I didn't care really. So honestly, I was just like, what is the point of making this awkward relationship where tall Andras is like simping for Claire? What is the point of making this entire relationship if at the end tall Andras is just going to leave her and then just going to marry a random person? So honestly, I found that infuriating somewhat, how there just had to be this relationship, because this relationship was awkward, first off. Second, it just, like, it was awkward, and they never even, like, they barely became friends. I don't even know if I can say that they became friends. So honestly, that was infuriating for me in this book. And that's all I have to say about this book. I will give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. And guys, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I hope this video was at least a bit enjoyable and at least a bit helpful for you too. Bye.